How to get the most out of your money when it comes to building, designing, installing, gaining yourself a new car audio system. We've all got a budget, okay? So, it's all about the way that word is commonly used. Usually, it's when the budget is the driving force behind the decisions that you're wanting to make. And that means you're living from paycheck to paycheck or something to that, maybe a little bit of a savings piled up, but not much. You're trying to make the most of your money and get the best you can. We understand that the term budget can also mean you've got $10 million in the bank, but that's not what we're talking about. Assuming that you're living on a pretty tight budget, I'm going to list this in a couple of different ways. The first part is, where's the priority? What should I prioritize when I'm spending the money? Where should I put the money at, right? Should I put it in the best amplifier? Should I buy the best speakers? Should I, that kind of thing. Well, I'm going to equate money to time. Okay, so when I say this is the area, it can mean money and or time. So maybe you have lots of money and no time. Maybe you have lots of time and a little bit of money. Either way, there's a budget that you have to work with, and your money and your time, which are the same thing. And the first one, I would say the top priority in getting a good car audio install is putting the money / time into the install itself. The removing and replacing of panels properly, getting your wires properly run in a neat fashion, orderly, without cutting or breaking anything, putting the right wiring in, using good copper and not crappy CCA, all of these types of things. The install is the majority. Use sound deadener in the doors, sound deadener on the panels where you're going to put drivers at, sound deadeners on any panels that are going to have a lot of vibration, removing the carpet, putting everything down properly, hiding it away, putting it all back together, making it look like it's supposed to look. The install is where the most of your time and or money should be spent. All right. That's where you're going to get the vast majority of the enjoyment from the process. Having said that, we're going to move on to equipment. Okay. And the first suggestion I would make, if you're working with an extreme budget or even a mild budget, is stay away from big name brands. Established companies that have got a reputation built up have already paid the dues. Now they can charge you more for the reliability and the notability of their current brand. You're buying the brand at that point. Go with some companies that are newer companies that are not well known. Do your research on the equipment that they sell, not the name brand that represents them, but the actual specs and materials and operating systems and the soft parts of the speakers with materials they're made out of, the way they're constructed, the factory that they come from, the specs, all the bits and pieces that make up the thing that you're wanting to buy. Look at those things, do the research, and buy the equipment, not the name brand. If you're buying a name brand, you're spending money somewhere where you don't need to spend it. If you're trying to keep the money and get the most out of your bang for your buck, go with smaller companies, less known companies. Not companies that are known for making bad products, but companies that aren't known really at all for anything. They're relatively new. They may be struggling trying to get business away from some of the big names, but they're not known for bad things. They're just not known much at all. Going with these companies are going to get you a good product for a lot less money. And you end up with a better overall, exchange. That makes sense. The third piece of advice is know exactly what you want and have a plan to get there. So when you're buying equipment, you don't buy anything twice. You don't buy anything you don't need that you're going to wind up replacing in a week or a month or a few months. You're getting just the things that you need to make this plan work. Okay? For an example, let's say in a hypothetical scenario, you go by, you're going to want to put some speakers in the front of your car, some subwoofers in the back. You got to amplify everything. Kind of got a general idea. So you go buy a 2-channel amp to put speakers in the front of your car, and then a 1-channel amp to handle your subwoofers. And then after you do that, right, you realize that you actually wanted to put tweeters and door speakers in the front, and you want to have them on separate amps because you need to, send the different signals to those speakers. You don't want to run them on a passive crossover because it's going to eat up a little bit of power, blah, 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 blah. And then you realize, well, I should have got a 4-channel amp instead of this 2-channel amp. Now I got to go get another 2-channel amp. That's an example of not planning it out. Or buying a 5-channel amp with a 500-watt subwoofer output, and then figuring out that you need, 2,000 watts for your subs. So now you've got a 5-channel amp and you're not even using part of it. You didn't think it out. So having a plan, knowing exactly where you're going and how you're getting there before you make that first purchase is going to save you money in the long run. You're not going to be spending money on equipment that you're going to wind up replacing or not utilizing. You're not going to be spending money on experimentation. You see what I'm saying? This goes back to putting the money in the install. If you're not educated enough or informed enough about this particular market and what goes on in this market and how it all works, paying someone else who is to do this job for you can end up saving you a lot of money in the long run from replacing and fixing and repairing all the mistakes that you make along the way. Sure, you could put the stereo in yourself. It's just a few wires, a few plugs. But while you're doing that, you break a $400 trim piece on your dash trying to get it off. And now you got to replace that. So that's $400 that you just lost. For that amount of money, you could have paid an installer multiple times to do the whole thing for you. You would end up with a lot better end product in the end, and no broken pieces, right? And for less money than it cost you to replace that one trim piece that you broke because you could do it cheaper. Or for example, you're going to put in an aftermarket stereo. And so you go and you do some research and you figure out you need this and this and this and this. You need this thing that's a couple $100, this thing that's $50, this thing that's $70, this thing that's $25, and you buy all the stuff. You get it all to the house and you put it all in, and you realize you didn't need the thing that was $200. So at best, you've got it all installed properly and perfectly, and you got an extra component that was $200 that you can't use for anything. That's what I'm saying. These are the things that these are the places where you save money. Okay? It's not about buying a product that costs less money. Honestly, it's not. It's more about not making mistakes and buying unnecessary gear and spending money in unnecessary places, and all of that stuff will stack up. You go and buy a 10-inch sub and a ported box, and you go, this will sound great. And it might for a week or two, a month, but then you're going to be, man, I should have got that 12. I should have got two 12s instead. So now you've got a 10-inch sub and a box that you're not going to use, and you've got probably going to need to upgrade your amplifier. So you've got an amplifier, a sub, and a box that you're about to completely replace. You're going to take at least a 50% mark off on it to try to sell it to somebody else. So that means you're out several $100s. Again, you just lost that money. It's gone. You see what I'm saying? That's where that plan comes in. So it isn't so much about buying the perfect equipment or buying the equipment at the best price. It's about doing a good install or having an install done for you, or learning to do it yourself and paying those dues, because there are dues to pay. Go ahead and order a bag of body panel or trim panel clips whenever you order everything, because you're going to break a bunch of them. Bag of trim panel clips, a bag of fuses, all this stuff. You're going to need to replace. You're going to blow fuses. You're going to break stuff. Watch lots of YouTube videos, because you're going to need to learn how to take that stuff apart, and hopefully you don't break anything in the process. Or you're going to pay somebody else to do it, or pay someone to help you, or get a friend to help you. The point is, the most effort goes into those first two things: the install itself and the planning of the system. Getting a plan that you can work your way through, an exact plan, and knowing exactly which types of things you're going to need to do everything. Making sure you've got every part you need before you start that project on the Saturday, because guess what? Saturday afternoon, when you realize you don't have the part, you're going to have to wait till Monday to get it, because everything's closed on Sunday. It'll probably be closed on Saturday. So knowing what you need, knowing all the pieces that you need, these things save you time and save you money. Not buying anything you don't need that you're going to wind up replacing. Buying the thing first. Buy once, cry once. That's another big one. Pay it once first. Go ahead and pay the price. Get the thing that you want. And don't try to buy a halfway thing, because you're going to wind up buying another halfway thing and another halfway thing. By the time you get the thing you want, you'll have spent twice or three times as much money for it. Just buy it up front. But make sure it's the right thing before you do that. Get multiple opinions on it. Get opinions from people who don't have anything to gain by how you choose. So don't get an opinion from someone who's trying to sell you something. Get an opinion from somebody that has nothing whatsoever to gain by helping you make a decision. Multiples, 2 or 3. That way, if you get one bad one, the other 2 will kind of, fix it. You know what I'm saying? Do your research on less expensive companies that are making more of a budget-friendly stuff. You may be able to find exactly what you're looking for. But if you're wanting to know where to put the money at on equipment, as far as types of equipment goes, put your money, the most money I would spend in a system is going to be on a DSP and amplifier to power everything. That's always going to be the foundation. I'm going to sink the most money into the amplifier DSP combination. Either it's a DSP amp, or it's an amp with a DSP, or 2 amps with a DSP. That's where I'm going to put the money at. And there's a couple of reasons why you do this. Everything else is going to be built on top of that. If you have a bad, crappy DSP or a crappy amplifier, no matter how nice the rest of the system is, it's going to sound like that crappy amplifier. Put down the best foundation you can and build on top of it. Whenever you replace door speakers, any speaker that's buried in a door or buried up in something where it's hard to get to, buy a good one, because you don't want to have to go back in there and pull it back out. These are just things. Also, whenever you have that stuff taken apart, if you're doing it yourself or if you're having somebody else do it, make sure you're doing your sound deadening inside that space while it's disassembled. So you're not having to go back later and go, man, I wish I had put sound deadener in there. Do it before you put the panel back together. Go ahead and put the sound deadening and stuff in there and get it laid out real good before you put the panel back together. If you're going to do a big build where you're going to be putting some big old boxes and crazy stuff in your car, when you first start, you may want to pull all your carpet, sound deaden the floor, But most importantly, pull down your headliner and sound deaden that roof, because that roof is going to be flexing like crazy. And once you get all your stuff installed in there, sometimes it's really hard to get that roof panel out, because the way most vehicles are, those side trim panels that go around the windows and around the B pillar and all that stuff, all that has to come down before you can take down the roof, the headliner. And so if you've got big old subwoofer enclosures and amps mounted on the walls and all this stuff, all that's got to come out so that you can take out those plastic side pieces and get those out of the way so that you can pull the headliner down. So before you start, if you know you're going to go big, or even if you're not going to go too big, you're just going to have some pretty good base, or you've got a lot of flat roof, like a van or a long wagon style car where the roof is really flat and long and there's not nothing in it to interrupt it, just a big sheet of flat metal, you're going to want to put sound deadener in there, at least to some degree, because if not, it's going to be flexing. Sound deadener will help with heat transfer from the outside. It'll help keep the thermal inside. It'll also help stop rain noises and road noises and wind noises. So it's going to be a plus no matter what. But you want to do that early on in the build, because you're going to wind up putting stuff in the way later, which will make going back and doing it later extremely difficult. Again, planning it all the way through. Making the mistakes at the very beginning are a lot better than making them way down the line. Get your planning sorted out. Know your order of operations so that you're doing the thing you need to do as you're going along, and then when you get to the end, you're not having to realize that you need to go back and do this again. You know, good wiring, a good plan, neat installation, knowledge on how to do things, not breaking any panels, buying equipment that's based on the specs of the equipment and the quality of the equipment, not the name brand. All of these things are very relevant. So the best place to spend your time and your money is knowledge. And you guys made a good start by stopping at this video. Hopefully I've fed you enough information for you to go out and begin your journey down this path and make those good decisions, good plans, and get a good overall experience for the least amount of money and time you have to invest into it. If you like my videos and my content and my assistance, be sure and hit that subscribe button down there. It means the world to me, and I can keep making these wonderful, crazy, and informative videos for all of my car audio enthusiast fans out there. Peace, guys.